Hello and welcome to my perspective on Season 14 Thresh builds. Whilst we will talk about some support items, we are mostly an off-meta channel. So let's set the mood by starting from top lane. Top lane Thresh's core item is going to be once again the almighty Titanic Hydra. Yes, it lost its AD from HP ratio, but it does have 15 more AD than it used to, if I'm recalling correctly, and it has more health than it used to. So it's like you're getting some of those late game stats you would have had on the previous Hydra immediately, and typically it doesn't really go far beyond that anyway. Much more interesting about Titanic Hydra is the new mechanic it has, or rather an old returning mechanic. Back in the day, Titanic Hydra had an auto-attack reset by using its active. This reset was not accessible to Thresh in the past, because the version in Season 10 and before, which had this reset, was a melee-only item. Now, it's been reverted, but the melee-only restriction has not been imposed again. So, we get Thresh with an auto-attack reset. It might look a little more dramatic with Hail of Blades, which I have for a reason, relating to Titanic Hydra. If you read Hail of Blades, you can see it says, basic attack resets, increase the attack limit by 1. This works with champions like Rengar and his Q, but unfortunately, whether it's a bug or intentional, it seems that Titanic Hydra's auto-attack reset does not increase the Hail of Blades count by 1, as you can see. We only got 3 attacks of Hail of Blades benefit. So, unless this is a bug and will be fixed, you can see that the correct way to use Hail of Blades right now is going to be 1, 2, 3, then reset. Mind, my ping is very high on the PBE, so if this looks bad, I apologize. That's 4 auto attacks. Now, why might you want to do 4 auto attacks to Thresh? Titanic Hydra has an on-hit, but it's not exactly amazing. The ratio is only 0.75% of health, and that's, well, not the best, is it? Even if we stack on lots and lots of health. Thresh, of course, has an on-hit effect on his Flay. Now, I know that some people think that it's only going to charge up, and if you auto-attack at every opportunity, you will not get a minimum damage. If we simply go to the dragon and spawn a bunch of them, we now have 10 souls for demonstration purposes, giving us 15 on his effect damage. You can see the magic damage. 15, 15. Okay, so raising our attack speed does not really diminish the amount of damage you'll get, and it's always going to be, at minimum, this soul count. It is never going to be 0, and I've seen people say that before. So there is a benefit to taking attack speed or even an auto-attack reset, like Titanic Hydra. Bear in mind, the reset's kind of effectiveness will kind of go down the more attack speed you have, since there's less of a difference between you doing a perfect auto reset and simply having high attack speed. May even be to your detriment if you do it incorrectly. But that also means that our other on-hit effects that may be really useful, like Blade of the Rune King, Kraken Slayer, Wit's End, and so on, are going to be really good, especially a certain item we'll talk about later. Titanic Hydra then is going to probably be the safest core option we can go for now until we play more games in the new season when it comes out, and learn more about what we're capable of. Other items you might consider, especially together with Titanic Hydra, are going to be things like Sunfire, which still scales with health, and has always been a really good option on Thresh, whether it's a mythic or not. Heartsteel is pretty damn good. Now, the only real problems with Heartsteel is that there are no resistances attached to it. Thresh has very low magic resistance as a ranged champion, so you are very vulnerable to things like Liandry's. Great news! Liandry's is no longer Liandry's Anguish, it is now Liandry's Torment. It provides more AP than I ever remember it giving. At very least, though, it's not going to scale with AP. It's still going to apparently increase damage based on seconds in combat, but that's still far less annoying than Liandry's Anguish, the Mythic, was. Demonic Embrace is also gone now, so this is the only thing you really have to worry about, as well as, of course, anyone that does percentage, max health, magic damage naturally. So you don't have to worry as much when going Heartsteel, but I'd still recommend pairing it with some kind of magic resist, like Wit's End, like Spirits, maybe Abyssal Mask for the Magic Pen. On the topic of magic resistance, there is a new item called, it's harder to find now, because it doesn't have that goofy icon on PBE, Canic Rukern. 400 health, 80 magic resist. Base health regen is not good on Thresh because Thresh has bad base health regen, so scaling it by 50% is like, whatever really. I think Go and Shield will give you more benefit. So after not taking magic damage, you get a magic shield. So it's like you are Malphite, but for magic, or, you know, Galio. This is the greatest way to tell mages to fuck off. If someone is going like Brand Leandries, Lilia Leandri, you know, anything that really just makes you want to end every mage in existence, like a Demacian, then you will want to take Kaenic Rukan. Continuing on with top, you will still want to be building tanky for this build, and Titanic is really good for that. You can go Heartsteel, nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's really good. But some new options have appeared. First of all, Wit's End is weaker early game. It does now have Tenacity, which is very attractive. It has 55% attack speed, which is really good. 50 magic resist is excellent. The on-hit is the exact same, but what is missing is the attack damage it had in Season 13. That made it much better early because that ratio, that 200% AD ratio available on play at level 5 is not going to be having any impact because Wit's End has no AD impact. Still though, the stats are really good and it's going to be much better late game when you get more souls and more on-hits in general. Getting it for the magic resist alone is really nice. The build path is just as good as it used to be, with cheap component items that can build up, whereas which is, yeah, that's a lot better than something else we're going to talk about later. Anyway, speaking of build paths, Titanic Hydra also has a really nice build path through Tunneler. You don't really want to build Tiamat. Tiamat, Ravenous Hydra, and Profane Hydra, which, by the way, you can only have one Hydra, are all kind of bad because they scale their cleave based on your attack damage, and that's only 20%, and Thresh's base AD is terrible, and he's ranged. So you could make the case for something like Ravenous later in the game, but 9 times out of 10, especially for top lane, Titanic Hydra is just better. What can go with this, kind of unexpectedly, you might think, ooh, on-hit effects like Blade Rune King are good. Yes, Blade Rune King is very nice. It also applies its slow on the first hit, rather than the third, which is really good. It doesn't do the big burst damage anymore, which is welcome, honestly. I think less front-loaded damage in League is good. But something that you wouldn't expect me to tell you is a nice option is Nash's Tooth, I think. 50% attack speed has always been really good. The AP on hits is very meh. 15 ability haste is good. But the actual best part of Nash's Tooth about the modern Thresh, with his buffs, is that it's a burst item. 90 ability power is not to be trifled with. You buy that, that's 90 AP on your box. That's a good amount of damage on Flay and Q. That's like, you know, the good old Ooga Booga combo is very much available with Nash's Tooth. Look at that damage. You can very much kind of blur the line between AD and AP Threshes with Nash's Tooth. Speaking of that, let's talk about Rageblade. Rageblade no longer has crit synergy. It does magic damage. And whilst it does provide you about 50-something% attack speed, in terms of an on-hit attack speed item, you will get more attack speed from Phantom Dancer. You will get similar attack speed from Runaan's with a better on-hit kind of synergy. There is another item which is even better. One, Wit's End, Nash's Tooth provide pretty much as much attack speed with arguably better effects, but Rageblade does, however, have AD and AP. Plus, again, lots of on-hits and lots of attack speed. It's not a bad item, it's just very squishy, and you don't want to go 6 on-hit items or else you will perish to a mere sneeze. However, still a good option. What is really good about attack speed, Titanic's Wave Clear, and Nash's Tooth is the ability to clear waves and smack turrets. You are permanently gaining ability power for every soul you get. We're only getting this much because we only have 10 souls. We could get more. And what might be surprising is that a new option just appeared. How does Thresh Top play for souls and get big like a Nasus? He wants to split push like a Nasus. Normally this is very bad because he's immobile, naturally squishy, and isn't actually very good at taking down turrets. But Hullbreaker, as you can see, actually no longer has the restriction that you need to be alone. It doesn't say that. The only thing it cares about is if you're melee or ranged. So every 5th basic attack, let's buy it and get into a minion wave. Let them walk over naturally because if we speed it up, they kind of glitch out. Every 5th basic attack against champions and epic monsters deals extra damage, scaling with base AD, which is a yikes for Thresh because his base AD sucks. But it also scales with max health. And max health we can get, like with Titanic, like with Heartsteel. It also provides a good chunk of health on its own and AD and move speed. These are stats that Thresh absolutely loves. Why, oh. Right, we screwed up. Try again. So you can get some reasonably good hits out of Hullbreaker to attack towers. Nash's Tooth's AP and attack speed also helps you shred towers, and attack speed helps you stack Hullbreaker faster. Speaking of which, so does Titanic Hydra's effect. Another item that is good for wave clear is Static Shiv. It no longer has an AP ratio at all, but it does have a nice base damage. It doesn't have any kind of increased damage against minions or anything, but its benefit is still good. You could at this point also build Runaan's Hurricane, which we have yet to talk about properly. But this would be very, like, just this on its own. You could skip Nash's Tooth. Oh, sorry, the towers are invulnerable. You can see that the Hullbreaker hits are doing damage, but also the Shiv hits are going to do some extra damage. So Shiv and Hullbreaker will help you take down towers mercilessly. And getting a little more wave clear in Titanic is helping as well. What we haven't talked about, we'll go down here for, is that Nash's Tooth, once again, it's not really an on-hit item, it's more a burst item, and a wave clear item. You hit them once with Titanic, I kind of messed it up, and then you flay them, and bam, that's Nash's Tooth's wave clear coming in. The downside of that is that you're using Flay's wave clear, and now you don't have it as an escape. Luckily, Hullbreaker's move speed is going to help a lot, and maybe with Hullbreaker's extra damage on champions as well, you can use that. Like, bam, wave clear, mess up my Flay, classic Cryobeat. And then bam, you get to hit this with the Energize, with all that. Are there going to be better users for this? Absolutely. Someone like Yorick is obviously going to be better with Hullbreaker than Thresh is. But what this does enable is a potentially new playstyle that is going to be more rewarded and less punished than it was before. Us being able to play top Thresh and just kind of farm to our heart's desire, wave clearing like this, pushing up, and then, you know, I don't know, taking a jungle camp. Because this works against epic monsters. Okay, epic, not large. But in any case, it's still very good stats. I probably wouldn't look at a 4-item build and call it amazing. So I'd probably go one or the other on the Shiv or the Nash's. They both fulfill a similar role here. Nash's is going to hit towers as well. So they're both kind of okay. Something that people are going to be very interested in is Sundered Sky, your first basic attack against a champion, crits for 150%. Now, a crit for 150% is kind of pathetic compared to a normal crit of 200% or an Infinity Edge crit of 225. Oh, sorry, 240%. I'm living in the past. But again, Sundered Sky has really nice stats. It does increased damage. Increased healing based on missing health. That looks to be your missing health. I believe that's your missing health, which would make more sense. And excess healing is granted as temporary bonus health. Temporary bonus health instead of shield is definitely interesting. It lasted about that long, and it gave us about 50 health just on that attack there. The damage is just what you crit for. So you would build this on some kind of physical damage build. Can Thresh do that? Yes. Do you necessarily want to all the time? Probably not. I think there are better users of Sundered Sky. Sorry, my minions are winning the game. But that's not going to stop you from trying. There is another item, I think it's this one. Dashes and stealth stack energized 75% faster, so we don't really get to use that because Gale Force is gone. Your energized attack deals 100 bonus physical damage and slows enemies by 20%. Not bad, but that 100% bonus damage apparently scales with itself and isn't amazing. And if you wanted to use Sundered Sky for a physical damage build, you'd then want to basically buy as much AD and crit as possible. Now, what is the interaction with Infinity Edge and Sundered Sky? I don't know. Let's find out. In order to find out, this Infinity Edge has a critical damage amp and 65 AD. So what we want to do then is buy 65 AD, measures the crit. These target dummies are exactly the same. 357. Okay, so we're going to have the exact same amount of AD with Infinity. And then again, Infinity Edge and Sundered Sky work together. I imagine that means that the first damage it's going to do is 150% and then adds 40% to be 190%, I suppose. Again, we can figure that out by removing Sundered Sky and just doing a natural crit with 55 attack damage. How do we do that? BF Sword. Is there something else with 55 attack damage that doesn't influence anything else? Ah, GA. Then we buy a bunch of cloaks. Okay. One of our target dummies disappeared. Right, let's hit this guy with a crit, hopefully. There we go. No. So naturally a crit does 200%, I believe. Or was that changed? Hold on. 175%, my bad. Still though, the theory is the same. It's like with Shaco's backstab, I believe. No, Shaco's deceive, his Q. The crit that comes with Shaco's Q. So it's setting the damage. It used to say this more explicitly, but it's changed to just 40% critical strike damage. But clearly that's just text, and it still means what it used to mean, where your crits do 220% damage, or whatever the number is now. 215? Either way, if you take Sundered Sky and Infinity Edge, on this test, it seems that Infinity Edge sets it to your maximum crit damage, which is great. So, if you wanted to build physical damage Thresh, which we've done before using Infinity Edge, you would take Sundered Sky, Infinity Edge, probably Berserker's Greaves, since you're buying so much AD anyway. You'd probably want to either max out on your auto-attack damage without too much care for crits, because you've got Sundered Sky anyway. So you would just go for high AD items. To this end, since you're going so hard into attack damage, you could go for lethality. It's just that even thinking about it in my head, this idea is not that great. You couldn't go for Voltaic Cyclosword, which is going to give an extra Energize effect. You're probably going to go with Lord Dominic's or Mortal Reminder, which is going to have some crit on it, which is fine. You can go for Edge of Night. New item called Opportunity, which grants you more lethality when being out of combat. And if they die, you get move speed. So this is quite nice. However, you're still going to want to buy an Energize item, which we apparently don't have space for when we build like this. Lord Dominic's is definitely a great idea, but maybe you're only targeting squishies, and therefore, you can buy Rapid Fire Cannon. Since you're kind of offloading everything to that, let's give it some armor and magic resist so this doesn't look over dramatic. Okay. Typical AD carry is going to do a shit ton of damage. They might have a bit more health than this when you're level 10 with 6 items. To be fair, let's put them up a bit more. 2,500 with 60 armor and 60 magic resist. I would love to change the armor and magic resist separately. That is still a technology Riot does not have access to. Then the Sky hit them. That's pretty significant. And that's probably tankier than your average AD carry. That's pretty nice. If we compare that, so let's make the exact same guy. Actually, let's put him over here because we're going to build Shiv. I wish you could do this faster. I'm looking at my build and I'm freaking out because there's no mythic in my 6-item build. Which I'm glad for when I think about it. So let's go for what we typically go for, which is going to be triple Energize. Mind, we only have 22 souls. You could go for the 4th Energize for the 100 AD, so the 100 physical damage. I haven't done any form of calculation on how worth it that is. I'm sure we'll do it at some point. 55 AD, though, is not to be trifled with. And stacking Energize faster, literally through just Flash, isn't amazing. But it gets us slow. That's like what Stormrazor used to do. It's hybridized a bit, so we won't be buying Void Staff. But instead, we can buy Navari, which is not at the bottom anymore because it's not a mythic. Our abilities deal up to 16% increased damage based on critical strike chance. This does not affect Energize items. This only affects the E passive that we've got here. Okay, so 1,200 on our physical damage only one. 1,237. The difference is actually not that high. However, this build has more crit, more attack speed. Generally say it's a little bit better. You get a bit more attack damage on the other one. And having more attack damage is good with Halo Blades. But this is quite nice. This is quite a nice turnout. Obviously, we're delving into meme builds. I mentioned this for top lane for some reason, but we just kind of went off on a tangent about the top lane on his item we haven't talked about yet. Well, there's another one. Runaan's. Runaan's is practically identical to how it was in Season 13, which is good. It was really good back then, but what we have to consider is what everyone else is going to build, which we're not going to know exactly for now. But we can predict there's going to be more people buying things that aren't mythics. Back then, it's like, oh, everyone's going to buy Gore Drinker. These champions are going to buy Jack Show. Everyone's going to buy Heartsteel. Now no one's going to be doing that. Everyone's going to be buying Sunfire. Someone's going to buy Iceborne. Someone else going to buy Rod. I've named 3 previous mythics. Someone's going to buy, Sundered Sky. Someone's going to buy so many different things. If someone is like a good melee champion and they buy Sundered Sky against you, then buying Runaan's is going to be really bad because you're not going to burst their 300 health bonus with Runaan's. And they might burst you while being tankier than you. That's not a good look for you at all. Someone with Liandry's is going to have health that your Runaans might not rip through too well, and they're going to have the poke advantage. Rumble's going to be a you don't. You buy Wit's End against that man, or maybe you buy Rukan. Let's say you fight Tryndamere and the man buys freaking like Reaver first or Blade Rune King. Okay, Tryndamere's a bit easier. We can handle Tryndamere. Hollow Radiant is like a magic resist Sunfire, which is going to absolutely destroy your damage output, especially if they actually have good base health regen to use this with. This is like scary. This is scarier than Sunfire. It does a little less damage, but the magic resist will invalidate you. So Runaan's first, I think, is potentially a viable option, but is more than likely, depending on what people build, not going to be a good option. The other on-hit item, which we're going to demonstrate a few things with it first, is Terminus. Terminus is our Rageblade replacement. As you can see, Rageblade no longer has hybrid penetration, which was the reason we bought it, really. It applies 30 magic damage, has a good build path with Recurve Bow and Dagger, but then ruins it with BF Sword, which is expensive. It's like so hard to just buy in like your average recall. You have to really save up for that damn thing. It has 40 attack damage, 30% attack speed, so you'd think that this is quite nice, but if you think about it, these stats are like awful when you compare it to something like Kraken Slayer, which has basically the same stats, only slightly better, with a better passive, and some crit. You know, Blade Rune King, it's basically better. Right, it's got the lifesteal, it's got the on-hit. Man, Terminus, it's not looking good for you. But there is something really good in its final passive, Juxtaposition. Alternate between light and dark on hits each attack. So your first attack is going to grant you a stack of light. The stack of light gives you anywhere between 3 to 5 armor and magic resist. So you attack once, you get 3 armor, 3 magic resist. Your second attack grants you, here's the big bit, armor and magic penetration. This one doesn't need to scale with level, but it kind of does by itself. It scales with the game by being a percentage-based thing. It gives you Hybrid Pen. This is the Hybrid Pen item in League of Legends right now. There, like, is no other. Every second attack, you're getting the Dark stacks. You can get 5 stacks of each, meaning that after 10 auto attacks, you'll get 30% armor and magic penetration, just like a full item build Rageblade back in the day. So clearly, this is something you want to buy late game. Now, you might be thinking, oh, just buy Runaans. Except those bolts are not stacking our Terminus faster. There is a way to stack it faster, and that's by using Rageblade. But the unfortunate thing is, although the Phantom does work, in your journey to 10 auto attacks, you're only going to get 1 Phantom hit because Rageblade needs to be fully stacked before it starts doubling your on hits every third attack. So you're getting 1 auto attack faster, which isn't amazing, but it's a synergy worthy of note. The other option is the auto attack resets in Titanic. I did it during Hazelblade, so it doesn't look that good, but that technically, again, cheats you in auto attack and gets Terminus stacked faster. At max stacks, at, I'm assuming level 18, you can get like 25 armor and magic resist, which is not bad. That's like a Jack show. And then a fully stacked Terminus really is like a lot of stats. It's just, early game, it's not going to give you enough. It takes too long to stack with Thresh's natural attack speed. But it's kind of necessary as a hybrid pen item if we're building for both physical damage and magical damage, like we're taking Titanic, Blade Rune King, Wit's End, plus Souls. An alternative, which is why we started looking at this, is that we simply go for magical damage on hit effects. We use Souls, we use Wit's End, we use Nash's Tooth, and then instead we buy Witstaff. On the topic of Voidstaff, which we'll touch on a bit more in a bit, is that we could instead go for Crypt Bloom. Crypt Bloom gives 10% less magic penetration, it gives 10 less ability power, but it comes with ability haste, which is really nice on Thresh. And whenever you get a takedown, within 3 seconds of damaging them, create a healing move. I didn't put any bots into this lobby because I'm an idiot, so we're not going to exactly test it, but not a bad other option if damage isn't your priority. But if you're that invested into magic damage, you might be. And the other small magic pen item is Abyssal Mask, which is again better for a tank build. It's giving 10 magic pen, magic resist reduction, and then when we buy Titanic, 16. Buy Heartsteel, no stacks, 25. You know, that's not bad. That's like a Shadow Flame and a bit. Though real quick, we actually haven't talked about proper tank Thresh. If you did want to play proper tank Thresh with Jack Show and stuff, Jack Show is 300 health, 50 armor, 50 magic resist. Oh my god, this thing is humongous. Like, you buy Heartsteel for the Giga health, you buy Jack Show for Giga defense, and because you're Thresh, you probably buy Ruka and wherever it is. You're set. You know, you're Giga Chad. Nothing's going to kill you except that AD carry. It also gives increased bonus armor and magic resist by 30%. And as you know, you get infinite scaling armor. As we've highlighted in the Worth of a Soul video, I'll link it in the top right, like, you'll equal the highest base armor support, Braum, by about 120-ish souls, which is achievable, particularly if you go for that split pushy build we talked about. So probably Titanic and Runaan's, Titanic and Shiv, Titanic and Nash's. All of these are going to be good. Nash's is a burst item, Sheer is like burst DPS, and Runaan's is pure DPS. Use that as you will when you come up with your builds early this season, if you play Thresh top. Yeah, as far as the tank item goes, you have Unending Despair, which is every 7 seconds. You can probably play around this, especially with your utility, your hook, and your flay and your box, to get this more often. It goes with 3% bonus health, so again, you slap a Heartsteel with this, and that's not bad. The healing is for 250% of the damage dealt, so you could absolutely play. You cannot have both Sunfire and Hollow Radiance, by the way, the magical version. I think with Thresh, you almost always want to go for the magical version now. And then you will just be hitting people with pure tank items and scaling your souls. And if you have 3 of these, say, heck, who cares, and buy a buy a Berserker's Greaves, buy a Titanic Hydra. Demonic Embrace is no longer in the game for that playstyle. I think there might be something similar. Hold on. We're going to look at AP properly in a bit. Ah, Riftmaker has taken the passive, which gives you Omnivamp. So, not a bad item. Not a bad item at all. We haven't talked about that, but this practice tour session is apparently about to end because we're reaching an hour. So, move on to a second recording. Okay, so let's talk about Thresh mid, or AP Thresh, really. Also, you could still play AD Thresh mid with Shiv, Razor, Rapid Fire, you know, that kind of Energize build. That's kind of self-explanatory, and we've already gone over it. Our main items for Thresh mid was Night Harvester. You could have gone Everfrost as well, and it was kind of funny as just being the item with the highest AP ratio passive, or active rather, but that's gone now. First of all, going over what is still here, we have Hextech Rocket Belt, which has lower AP, still builds out of Alternator. Now, Alternator doesn't have its health anymore, but does have more AP damage. Our Electrocutes are going to be really good, but this means it's a little worse for approaching. You know, when you're trying to get through the poke of a Zerath or an Ari, and you're trying to hit them with some kind of combo with the hook to get the Electrocute damaged, you might not survive. So it's a little more risky to go for this. But the items you can build out of Alternator are here, and they are really good. Rocket Belt helps you use its active. I've got high ping, remember? Oh, was I just by ping? We try that again. There seems to be a delay. It could just be PBE. I think it's PBE. So maybe someone who lives closer to PBE can shed some light on that. With the Rocket Belt out of the way, its AP is lower, doesn't have the Magic Pen anymore. It's a weaker item. Instead, let's look at some of the new things. Luden's Companion builds out of Lost Chapter and Alternator, providing absolutely no health, but 90 AP, which we've already said is not a joke. And 20 ability haste, it gives you shot charges every 3 seconds up to 6 maximum, and when you damage someone with an ability, it will deal 40 magic damage to the target and 1 additional nearby target per charge. If there are insufficient targets in range, then it repeats the damage for 35% extra damage. So basically, if someone is alone, it does more damage per charge you have. Now, these charges are gained just by waiting around. You can see we already have 6 by the time we buy it. So if we're going to hit it with a Q, you can see it's doing a little 60 extra burn. But if we have 3 of these guys and just kind of... Oh, it's not an Energize item. Ready for the full 6. Now, this passive does scale with AP. 8% per charge. Hang on. You can see it spreads. It's it doesn't bounce back. It's only if there are insufficient targets in range. So if we move 2 of them over here, you can see we spread, I think, 48 damage. Now it's splashing 17, and then it did the extra charges to the main target. It's a bit like the old Luden's, kind of less bursty, and the extra damage on itself is not going to be as high, I think. But overall, it's got pretty much the same use case as Luden's, but with less of an emphasis on spell spam, which is good for AP Thresh because your cooldowns are really high. So just having more damage on main target is nice. Sometimes when you're spamming spells this much, the mana is nice. It's an okay item. Slightly more interesting though is Storm Surge, which doesn't build out of Lost Chapter, doesn't have any mana, is 100 AP, 12 magic pen with move speed, which I think is just better. Now, dealing 35% of a champion's max health within 2.5 seconds is then going to grant you move speed and, more importantly, lower damage for range. Strikes target again after 2 seconds, dealing big magic damage scaling with level and AP 30%, kind of the same as Everfrost. If the target dies before the strike, it detonates immediately in a large area, and also grants gold. So when you do your box combo, Storm Surge will hit them again. It's not even a competition whether you want Storm Surge or Luden's Companion. You want Storm Surge. This is the best item. You buy this as Burst Thresh, okay? This is really good. We do have some other items to talk about. Malignance. Damaging a champion with your ultimate burns the ground beneath them. What's really important is how big this is, which I actually don't know, so let's find out. So our typical box combo makes this kind of thing, which is still within our flay. However, if we do a regular combo like this, and we interrupt our own Q with flay, then it puts them in the center. So we want to land them directly on the box wall, no matter what. So as you can see, they hit the box here, and then we flay them a bit out, and then they just have to walk. Even with 99% slow, they can probably walk out of it, or a short hop, short dash will get them out of the Malignance. The nice thing about Malignance on Thresh, by the way, you can build multiple of these. These aren't mythics, you can build them all. It's usually depending what you want first. So this reduces your ult's cooldown by 20% just by having it. Sorry, no, that's wrong. 20 ultimate haste. That's different. I'm living in the past again. The damage, once again, will scale, but that's per second. So it's for 3 seconds. So if they stand in it for the full amount, then that is an 18% AP ratio. Isn't bad. Again, if you want burst, even though this has the ultimate synergy, you still want Storm Surge. However, Storm Surge is quite reliant on you getting your box combo. So, you buy both. Unfortunately, one of our favorite items, Horizon Focus, first of all, no longer has health, no longer has as much AP, and most problematically, does not care if they're stunned anymore. It only cares if they're at long range. You can still activate it, and it's still good, but it's not as good. It seems very generous with the 700 range, so actually, it's better than I thought. But again, less versatile. If someone's in your face, it's not that good, and it doesn't provide the health anymore. But not a bad item. Cosmic Drive has had itself changed a bit, so it's 25 ability haste. I think that's normal. I think it's only 35 in Arena. I've played a lot of Arena lately. But it has its health back, which is really nice. This is the ability haste item of choice. When you want nothing more than ability haste, you buy Cosmic Drive, and you kind of do want that on Thresh. Very nice item. Not the highest damage. The highest damage goes to Death Cap with a Chad 140 ability power, along with a 35% ability power amp. Zonia's is also back to its 120 ability power Glory, making it quite nice, and you're going to be buying it more for the active than the armor, since one of the biggest downsides of AP Burst Thresh, you still have a rapid fire cannon. So you kind of do your thing, and then that's that. You probably want a Zonia's, wait on cooldowns, let your team follow up, that kind of thing. If we take Storm Surge and Malignance as our core with Sork Boots, then afterwards we might want something tankier. Maybe we want Zonia's, or maybe we just want something like Cosmic Drive, like Rocket Belt, maybe even just Rod of Ages. Unfortunately, you cannot buy 6 Rod of Ages, so that builds out. But overall, not too bad. There aren't many we'd want. We would definitely want Void Staff or Crypt Bloom. Both of them are really good, depending on whether you want to max out on damage or if you want to be a little more helpful to your team. I would recommend probably the only non-AP items to mix in are going to be Abyssal Mask for the pen, and I guess any tank item is not too bad. Heartsteel would be okay, and if you are building health, then Riftmaker is a good idea as well, but that's more for a Bruiser Thresh. Speaking of which, we didn't talk about this earlier, but Riftmaker no longer has Omnivamp on Leeching Lair because Leeching Lair doesn't exist. This is a big shame. So you only get the Omnivamp when you have a max stacked Riftmaker, so it doesn't have the lane sustain it used to have, which I know wasn't valued by most people. Someone made a long comment about why Riftmaker was a bad item on Thresh, while completely forgetting my favourite part of it, which was the in-lane sustain. And they also seemed to forget the magic damage of the on-hits that Thresh does. It's still a good item though, if only because Demonic was also good. AP and health in the same item are really good for Thresh, and it even gives ability haste. Omnivamp is like a nice bonus. Increasing your damage up to 10% is nice. It's not delivering it as true damage, but that's more than fine. You're going to buy this, and you're going to add on any amount of health items you want in order to get a little bit of more AP for your tanky purchases. Combining it with simply Jack Show is going to give you a small boost to the AP it's giving you, but more importantly, it's going to give you the resistances to increase the value of the Omnivamp. Again, not that good because it needs to stack up. So probably better with it then, because it increases all damage you do with champions. It's going to be something like Hollow Radiance or Sunfire. This will be increased by Riftmaker, and you can further combine this with Abyssal Mask for even more magic resist. We have a pitiful 28 armor because we have no souls. But like, that's 100 magic resist, almost 1,000 health, over 1,000 health with Riftmaker, providing an extra 25 AP from these items, which isn't that good. But remember, Hollow Radiance is giving us a nice little burn as well. The Sunfires are going to push your lane if you're standing next to them, but this means Hollow Radiance has a Tristana E passive kind of effect, so be careful of that when you buy it in case you're not ready or don't want to have the lane pushed at any point. If you want to sit there, freeze here and farm, and you're able to do that, maybe don't finish Hollow Radiance and just sit with the Spectres. Or even sit on Spectres and Bammies and then just go for something else. I don't know, depends how desperate you are. Of course, if you wanted more AP on top of that, Nash's Tooth is a great idea. And Liandry's isn't bad. I used to dislike Liandry's on, like, Liandry's Torment, not Anguish. Although I disliked Anguish as well. But now that it's max health damage, it's AP and health, this isn't bad. This is a very nice complement to this playstyle. These 4 items on a top Bruiser Thresh will be really nice. Buying them in order. Of course, you can swap out Hollow Radiance for an actual Sunfire. This will give less health. It'll give, obviously, no magic resist and provides armor instead. Sometimes you do need to buy armor in case you have a bad laning phase, your souls are being denied, things like that. It does more damage straight up, so also Sunfire is going to do more damage than your Riftmaker. Again, not bad. You also don't need Sork Shoes with this build, but it's nice. Probably the last thing you'd go in a build like this, 5th or 6th item as necessary, is going to be Void Staff, or more likely with this one, Crypt Bloom. The 30% magic pen is all you really need to kind of counter enemies' scaling magic resistances, but the ability haste and the life from death passive, really good. I think that this is going to be pretty damn solid. You know, you can do basically everything Thresh wants to do with a little extra. The AP is only going to be at 270, which isn't that good, but you could swap something else. I just think that this is a solid AP Thresh tank build. If you wanted to swap out Abyssal Mask because you don't need a magic resist, you do. Believe me, you do. So more likely, swap out the Sunfire and instead buy some other kind of AP tanky item, which is probably... Honestly, there aren't that many options. Cosmic Drive. You could buy Rylai, but there's absolutely no point with that on Thresh. So yeah, it's probably going to be Cosmic Drive all this. So it just depends how tanky you want to be and how many hooks you want to throw out. Sunfire or Hollow Radiance are going to be really good. And just remember, if you need it, Unending Despair is here. You don't need to buy Crypt Bloom, and you can buy not Unending Despair. I meant Kainic Recurn. But this is, I mean, this is good too. Even more healing. Enemies aren't buying Grievous, you can punish them with that. So we've talked about AP Burst, we've talked about AD Burst. Now we have to talk about AD Carry, which is kind of going to be like on hits, but a little more damage focused, a little more selfish. Less of that, ooh, we should buy a Titanic so we don't die kind of mentality. More of the, I want to kill everyone. Right, so what an AD carry needs to do is, one, be able to position at the back, which you naturally struggle with attack range of 450. And they want to be able to do good damage output to whoever is closest. You don't want to be focusing the enemy AD carry as the AD carry. That's how you get bodied by the enemy team. So there's a few good options. First, let's talk crit. The natural thing to do then is to go Shiv first for wave clear, and then just go like Storm Razor. Rapid fire cannon. At this point, you might as well get Voltaic, although probably wouldn't in this case. In this case, I'd probably say go for Navari or Infinity, whether you want more DPS or more burst, or if you want more magic damage, or if you want more physical damage. Either one is good. You can go Berserker's Greaves naturally much earlier. Between these two, now that they're not mythics, Navari, I think, has a higher skill ceiling with the ability haste and the cooldown reduction. Plus, it just has really nice burst effects on this kind of build anyway. Your final item then, need more gold, could be something like Bloodthirster. You're being hit a lot, you can be Shield Bow, but most likely it's going to be something like Lord Dominic's because people like armor. You don't need it though, and of course, you can go for Terminus. The alternative method, rather than going for the Energize Burst, is for a more traditional crit build, or more traditional DPS build. You're instead going to want to buy something like Blade Rune King. So this can be really good against lots of tanks. The first basic attack slowing people is going to help you support out massively as well, helping them catch up to lay the pain. You're going to want something like Blade Rune King. You're going to want stuff like where's attack speed? Runaan's. Kraken at this point is really nice as well. So the main things you're going to want is high AD, high attack speed, on-hit effects that work with this, potentially crits, and on a DPS build, you buy Terminus, because most of your damage is going to be from souls. You're free to experiment. For example, not this one. Is Riftmaker still in the game? There's a lot to keep track of here. We're going to talk about a lot of things as the year goes on, naturally. I want to find my favorites and most effective builds as soon as possible with the new season, because I'm actually genuinely looking forward to enjoying League enough to play ranked again. When you've got Terminus, and when you've got this kind of DPS focus, you want lots of attack speed. Runaan's is a huge amount. You will genuinely want to buy Wit's End against any kind of magic damage. The enemy has Morgana. Maybe don't rush it, but it's a good purchase. Anyone who's got like a magic tank that wants to just dive you, I don't know, Maokai, that wants to just pin you down so other people can catch up, Wit's End is going to help you a lot at negating some damage and the tenacity as well. From there, you can also buy Rageblade if you want. It's not bad. It's a lot of attack speed. Attack speed and multiplying on hits is really good for Thresh in the late game, so not bad at all. But between it and Terminus, Terminus is better. Kraken Slayer is good, and probably the most controversial thing, most of the time you want physical damage, so you're going to go for Kraken. What you can do, let's say you didn't go Kraken or Blade Rune King, you've just got Wits, Terminus, you have the option to buy Void Staff as an AP, which is a bit weird, but it does work. Another item that you should consider buying is going to be Immortal Shield Bow. You're an AD carry with low range. This is a good one. I'd also like to look into a build we used to do, which was nerfed ever since Immortal Shield Bow stopped being a mythic, stopped having attack speed. You might not need Wit's End for this one, go for Lifesteal in the form of Blade Rune King. If there was an Omnivamp option, we would love it, but there isn't one except Riftmaker. And then, because you want to be at close range doing DPS, what you're actually going to do is build Spirit Visage. By being tankier, you can get in closer, and with 450 range, you're kind of going to have to get in closer. From here, you're going to get armor from souls. Don't worry about your armor. You know, if you're playing AD carry Thresh and you want on hits, you better be getting them damn souls. You can get another lifesteal item. The arms, probably Shield Bow. You probably also get Shield Bow because that's also amped by spirits. And people are going to start wanting to buy Serpent's Fang. And when you're influencing them the way they spend gold, that's not bad. Especially if it doesn't actually work against you. Since you'll also have your shield from Lantern. You know, you're a durable piece of work. And they have to put in real effort to take you down, which is not something that is normal for an AD carry. Normally people are investing in mobility to chase you down. Say you're, I don't know, an Ezreal. But here they have to actually put in work to kill you, which is very cool and interesting, especially when you get the souls. And of course you can buy GA instead of Shield Bow. You could buy Death Stance if you wanted. The main thing about playing AD carry Thresh is that you get your souls up. Your souls are the most important thing. And then all you have to do then is be in range of auto attacks, be alive, and be doing DPS. Finally, we come on to support. Support all have one starting item, called Atlas, which goes on to Runic Compass, becomes Bounty of Worlds. At Bounty of Worlds, you can then pick, essentially, a passive for this item. All the stats remain the same. You'll still get 5 gold per second. You'll get health, base health regen, and base mana regen. And a quick summary. The one you're going to want most of the time as a standard support Thresh is going to be Solstice Slay. Slowing or immobilizing an enemy on a 20-second cooldown restores health and grants move speed to you and your ally. This is just value. It's giving healing, which is something Thresh doesn't have, naturally, which is really nice. He has a immobilize on Q, he has a slow on E and R. You can do this quite easily. It's just extra value for the fight, especially early game, since this is not something that scales. Very nice. Most of the time, I think Thresh is going to be buying this, because it's just so easy to use and it's solid. The other thing you'll look at is Celestial Opposition. This reduces incoming damage after you take damage from a champion. When this shield breaks, you unleash a shockwave, so it's essentially aftershock that triggers on damage. It's only 25% for range though, and Thresh is ranged. This is the reason I think Thresh is more likely going to take Solstice, but 25% damage reduction is not bad at all. It's not bad. It's still good, and I can see Thresh buying this if he needs it. If this was 40% for melee and ranged, then I think that this would be the item that Thresh takes. Next up we have Dreammaker. This is not going to be something that Thresh takes. You need to heal or shield, which Thresh only does with a high cooldown lantern, usually used for other purposes. This is not good on him, this is good on enchanters. Zazak's Realm Spike is the mage support item, dealing ability damage to a champion, 8-second cooldown, creates an explosion. This would be bad if it wasn't, well, bad on Thresh, if it didn't have the 3% max health damage. This is nice. 3% max health damage, that scales with the game. Unlike pretty much every other option, this is the only one that is going to scale. There's one other option, and I wonder which one it is at this point. So if you do buy this on mage supports like Brand, Lux, etc., you will scale with enemies with max health damage, and you can make use of that by hitting your first ability on their Mundo or whatever. That's value. Bloodsong is going to be a bit controversial among people that know me and watch me, because it's a Spellblade item, and it's the one I'm going to recommend for funny Thresh builds. After using an ability, you get a Sheen effect, dealing base damage, 150%. I swear this used to be much lower. So not bad at all. 150% base damage on hit. If the target's a champion, apply Expose Weakness, increasing the damage they take by 8% because you're ranged. Okay, so why would I recommend this? I think that Sheen is awful, and Sheen is providing you 100% base damage. I think 20 Force isn't a good idea. I think Divine Sundered last season wasn't a good idea, because your cooldowns are high, you aren't going to be getting it every 1.5 seconds, and your base damage is low. So why? Well, this one's free. This is a 400 gold Sheen. Like, that's not bad. That's not a bad idea at all. Also, more importantly, this is the other item that definitely scales, because you're increasing your damage and your allies' damage on the enemy that you also with this. 8% only because you're ranged. So yes, Pyke is going to use Bloodsong a lot better than you, but you can apply it from range. If you wanted to, you can walk up to someone, flay, hit them with Bloodsong, and then just kite away if you want, or hit them with a Q after your flay. And that's going to increase damage, not only for your AD carry, but for everyone on your team, including you. So if you're playing a funny build from support with Bloodsong, and you use the support gold you get from this to buy something funny, like if you look at some of the cheaper damage options of today, Wit's End, that's magic resist, 55% attack speed, and then you get souls. Your soul damage and your Wit's End on hit damage are going to be amplified. You could also buy Liandry's. I think there are better champs for this. But I mean, actually, wait, no. Thresh is like the only AD AP champion that can do this, really. Although maybe some of the mage sports actually have higher base damage. I think that is actually quite likely, and lower cooldowns too. So no, actually, he's not unique in that regard. But if you were building funny, then you can go Bloodsong. And then you amplify your DPS for the next 6 seconds. That's 6 seconds of 8% increased DPS. That's funny. That is a funny item. Of course, as a Sheen effect, you can build it together with RFC if you really want. That's 3,000 gold now. It's not as cheap as it used to be in order to do funny burst Thresh. But in general, support Thresh is going to want to build Solstice or Celestial Opposition. And then you're going to want to go into cheap supporting tank items. There's quite a few. Frozen Heart is only 70 armor now. But it's still, you're buying it for the purpose of reducing damage and attack speed. So Frozen Heart is a good option. Locket's a good option. Nice, cheap. Armor and Magic Resist. Knight's Vow. You know, Shirelia's. These are all good. Shirelia's not providing any kind of health anymore, but that's okay. You can, of course, buy any of these. Vigilant Wardstone. Oh! They got rid of the AP increase on Vision Wardstone. Here's Sunfire, you know, Hollow Radiance, Ruka and Unending Despair, Randuin. All of these are going to be good options on Support Thresh because you just essentially want to be tanky, but these utility ones are going to be your priority. Unless the enemies have lots of kind of bursty AoE, magic resist, you know, enemies that can hit multiple enemies at once, where people are going to be splashing onto you and where you might need to be a bit tankier, stuff like Locket with the armor and magic resist is going to be more than enough. In any case, that was my take on all of the new upcoming Thresh items, and I will be releasing this video, hopefully somewhat edited, right before the new season. Hope you enjoyed, and be sure to follow us on the channel, subscribe, and hit the like button, because we're going to be doing a lot of experimenting with Thresh, Gwen, and probably some other champions as well, whoever I feel like playing with the new items. And be sure to follow us on Twitch, where we'll play and experiment together as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.